Welcome to TacosandGeeks.com reviews. Justin here, and today I'm going to be reviewing Disaster Report for Summer Memories. This is the fourth installment in the Disaster Report franchise, and as always, I give you a brief synopsis of the game. So here we go. Disaster Report for Summer Memories. You have the chance to stop, think, and act. Evaluate each perilous situation and make decisions that will impact your own safety as well as that of others. Navigate a multiple of crises from collapsing buildings to raging fires in the city amid with peril. And this game, if you are familiar with the Disaster Report franchise, such as Disaster Report 1 that came out on the PS2, Raw Danger, which was the title in the US, and the PSP one, you know exactly what you're getting into. You're playing characters that are going through a natural disaster, and the whole point of this is to survive. And this plays no different than the others. A little bit of kinks were fixed here and there, but for the same part, for those hardcore Disaster Report fans, you know what you're getting, and it's pretty much the same solid installment with a lot. It's a very fun, flawed game, and that's how I'm going to say it. So as we kick off, I'm not going to show you anything beyond the demo because I don't want to spoil anything, especially when it comes to earthquakes and things like that. So I'm just going to show you clips from the demo and probably just a little bit of it after. But I don't want to show anything beyond that because I want you guys who are planning to play the game to still be pleasantly surprised. And I don't want to see the trigger of the earthquakes and things like that, of what you're supposed to do and things like that. So I'm going to try to keep this spoiler free as possible. So the first thing you notice when you get to the Disaster Report, you have to make a choice of what would you do in the situation with an earthquake. Then you get to choose between your male or female protagonist, and then you get to do a little bit of customization, as you can see here, with their hair, the skin tone, not the clothes yet, and that's pretty much it. And then you get to start off. And that's pretty cool because you still had kind of like that same type of, you didn't have the character customization in previous Disaster Report 4 games, so I did like that. And just to reiterate as well, they also have a VR mode feature. I did not get a chance to do the VR mode feature because I don't have a PlayStation VR, but there is a VR feature in this. One of the things that I would say, I'm going to start off with the bad, then I'm going to start with the good. Disaster Report 4 is main selling point is that you get to shape the story. Your decisions will impact the overall narrative. The problem with this is most of the time the choices that you make, you still have to do the choices. You still are forced to do the choices that the game wants you to do. As you just saw there, I selected the option to curse the lady out before I gave her the seat, but nothing happened. He didn't even curse her out. He just gave up the seat willingly. It looks like he gave the seat willingly. There was no real people being shocked that he's lashing out this old woman or everything else like that. And that's what I think really hurts Disaster Crisis 4, and where my major disappointment comes into is the choices. The choices do not really affect the story much. There's situations in this story where you have the choice to save people or you could just let them die. And if you want to continue the story narrative and continue to go to the next area, you have to save them. Even after you said, I'm not going to help you, even if you said, go die, I got to look out for myself, you still have to do it regardless. The game makes you save them. So it doesn't make sense to have those choices. And that's the problem with this, is that you're making a game heavy on choices, but the choices, even if you're trying to be the bad guy, you still have to be the good guy in order to progress the story. Now, I'm reviewing this pre-day one patch because I received this as a review copy, so maybe that got patched up with the day one patch. So I'm not really sure. So if it is, folks, let me know, and then I'll definitely redo the whole review over again. But as of now, the choices that I made in this game didn't really affect the story from a narrative standpoint when it comes to trying to be the bad guy or trying to be a dick. It just really didn't do it. And I thought that was, for me, just like a huge, huge disappointment. I really was not feeling that type of aspect there, and I thought they could have done a little bit of job with that. Another thing about this game is the load times. The load times in this can be a little bit of a wait. It's not PS2 era bad, but for a PlayStation 4 game, you're sitting there for a little, probably would say at least 45 seconds. Maybe I'm over exaggerating. 30 seconds, 45 seconds sometimes to load, and it doesn't really help you. It kind of takes you out when they have to load a cutscene, or it stops to load a cutscene or load an area and things like that. I mean, granted, this is a budget game. I'm assuming this was a budget game. It's not a big budget game, but you can kind of see and tell that it's still one of those budget franchises. Now for the good, I'm gonna talk about the positive. The game looks gorgeous compared to the other disaster report entries, and I thought just it captures Tokyo very well. I would say that the earthquake sequences and the aftershock sequences work very well. There was times that I did die. I would say that they did add some realism to this, which I like, is that your character has to go to the bathroom. Your character has to be hydrated. They have to eat. They have to take rest. So I did like that aspect. But one thing which I thought was a little bit weird is that they let you eat, they let you rest, they let you sleep and all this other stuff. But for some reason, we have unlimited stamina to run. That, I thought, a stamina feature was taken out, which we see in other disaster report games. I don't know why they took that out for this guy to take a breath or anything else like that. So they can run endlessly in this, which is kind of unrealistic, especially when you're in a crisis like an earthquake or a tsunami and things like that. I thought that was a little bit weird that this guy or the characters can just run endlessly without having to breathe or catch a break. I would say that it is a fun game with its flaws. There are a couple of glitches in there that I did notice, some little graphical clipping and things like that, but it didn't, for the most part, didn't kill my overall experience of trying to survive. It's fun when you're playing the good guy, because that's how the game wants you to play it. The only time where you're being a bad guy that actually works is when you're basically scamming people for money or you're asking for a reward. That's the only time they have like this feature of moral points and immoral points. And what that basically means is the choices, you get immoral points, and if you make good choices you get moral points. But it doesn't really do nothing. It's not really even explained what that does or how that dictates the ending or anything else like that. But for the most part, I got the same ending. I had to save the same people regardless, and that's where it kind of just takes me out of it. I would say it's a fun game. Gameplay wise, it's very simple. Anybody can pick it up. There's no real button confusions or things like that. It's just you pressing square to duck when it comes to earthquakes. You press R1 to run. You have a first person camera perspective with L1, which is new, which I really did like. I think that's pretty cool. But for the most part, and the voice acting is good. Oh, speaking of voice acting is great. But they have this weird thing that I noticed in these games, which is weird. They constantly have, in certain sections, they literally kill the entire tone to give you a full musical number with the same song from time to time. I thought it was a little weird. And there's also a little bit of weirdness, too, that they have ads in this game. Not like, oh my God, like NBA 2K where they stop the game, you give you ads. No. There's built-in ads like how other games have Easter eggs and stuff like that, but they have a building poster ad for Disaster Report 4 in Disaster Report 4. So basically, I'm trying to say is that, does the character know, is Disaster Report 4 a game within the Disaster Report 4 universe? Which is weird. Why would you have a poster advertising the game that the gamer already purchased to play your game? It was weird to me. Maybe that was supposed to be for the demo, but they didn't take it out. Hopefully, like I said, this is pre-day one patch. Maybe they took it out and replaced it with something else. But I thought that was a little bit weird. So overall, is it a fun game? Yes, it is. If you're used to the Disaster Report franchise, you love the Disaster Report franchise, you're going to love it. You're going to have some fun with this. Just don't expect your choices really to affect the story. Keep in mind, this is a pre-day one patch. So I will definitely give this a buy, rent, or wait for sale. This is definitely a wait for sale. For those who like numbers, I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10. I had some enjoyment with this. I did like some of the sequences with the earthquakes. I did feel some tensity at times with certain set pieces, especially the ones when we were on vehicles. I thought that was pretty cool. I think some of the dialogue was pretty cool. The breaking the fourth wall type of ruined it a little bit for me, and there's a lot of fourth wall moments, so it's just like, okay, you're ruining the tone right now. The gameplay is pretty solid. It's nothing really much has changed from the disaster report, so if it's not broke, don't fix it. I agree with that. But if you want a letter grade, it's definitely a C minus. It's average at best. I will wait for it to be on sale. This is not something I will pay full price for. It's very disappointing because I was so hyped. I was so anticipating this game, but the fact that the choices don't really affect anything and it doesn't really kind of move the narrative at times. Like certain bad choices do take effect, but unless it's the game wants this person to live, they're going to live regardless. So, that's the disappointing part. It's not something that you expect in Telltale where your choices actually matter, things like that. So don't expect something like that. But overall, if you're a Disaster Report 4 fan, wait for it to be on sale. If you really, really want it, I would say go get it then. But otherwise, this is average at best. Nothing new under the sun, but still fun. A fun, flawed budget game. What I expected. This is Justin from TacosGeeks.com saying, later days.